This question is hopefully pretty straightforward, but tests our knowledge of some terminology, what is an integer, and then the wording is a little bit tricky. So let's take a look. What is the least integer that is greater than square root of 77? A couple ways you could do this. So first of all, what is an integer? An integer is something that doesn't have a decimal or a fractional piece. So often said a whole number can be positive and negative, but in this case it will be positive because we're taking a square root. So you could do a couple things. You could approach this a few ways. First of all, you could just take your calculator and you could say, well, what's the square root of 77? And that gives you 8.77, and it continues on. So this is approximately 8.77, and that's rounded a bit. So then you could look at that and go back to the terminology, and it has to be the lowest integer, but it has to be greater than this number. So what's the first number that's an integer that is bigger than 8.77? And again, integer has to be a whole number. So the first whole number bigger than 8.77 would be 9. So this is going to be our answer. And we just did that using a calculator. You have a calculator on the ACT, so that might be a great way to save some time and pick up some time for those other questions. The other thing you could do is you could say, if you know your perfect squares, you could say, okay, well, I know the square root of 64 is 8. Square root of 64 is 8. And the square root of 81 is equal to 9. And so the square root of 77 would lie between those two. And so the lowest integer that is bigger than the square root of 77 would be the 9. So either way you do that, we can see that our answer is H, the integer 9.